I'm sure you guys have heard of the State of the Union, where the president comes out and he talks to the country about the state of the country. Well, consider this the 2022 State of the Sixers. What's up, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into the state of the 76ers, where we are and where we're headed, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's free love, costs you nothing. Of course, like the video and follow me on socials at Sixers Breakroom. That's on Twitter and Instagram. I'll put those links in the description below. Now, the state of the Sixers 2022-2023 is going to be broken into 4 parts. Part 1, how did last season end? Part 2, what did we do to make changes to the roster going into the next season? Part 3, the concerns you and I, the fans, have with the team as it's currently presented. And Part 4, projections for this team. Where do I see us ending up? So, Part 1, where did this team end last year? Well, we all know we lost once again in the second round, this time to the Miami Heat in 6 games. We had James Harden, who wasn't looking 100%. Maybe more importantly, we had Joel Embiid, who actually missed the first 2 games of the series, and it was obvious that this team needed to make a change. It was very obvious that this team needed an upgrade, and there were 3 major areas of concern that we all had for this team. Number 1, we needed to get tougher. Number 2, this team needed to have more grit, just more dog in it. And number 3, there was a concern with the lack of bench scoring coming from the reserves. So what did we do to go and address these issues? Well, we started with the bench, and we started that on draft night. On draft night, we traded our first round pick, and in return, we got De'Anthony Melton coming over from the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, De'Anthony Melton is a combo guard. He could play the 1, he could play the 2. He averaged 11 points a game last year, and he also rebounds and defends. The guy got 5 rebounds a night in the limited amount of action that he got with the Grizzlies. So you got a guy averaging 11 and 5 coming off the bench that can play either guard spot. Immediate upgrade for the bench. We also brought in Daryl Morey Jr., who's going to once again provide some spark off the bench. He's a guy that can knock down open threes. He's a guy that you can rely on to hit shots when you need him. He didn't play as well in the playoffs in his last playoff outing, but he is a guy who's proven to be able to be a shooter and come off the bench and knock down shots. When it comes to toughness and grit, well, the team went and got the definition of toughness and grit. We went out and got PJ Tucker, and may or may not have tampered in the process. I don't know. And truthfully, I don't care if we did, but we bring in a PJ Tucker who is going to immediately upgrade this team's toughness, both mentally and physically. He's an absolute dog. And most recently, we picked up another dog, another guy who could provide toughness and grit in Montrezl Harrell, and we got him for the cheap. One other area of concern that I would say we had outside of the toughness, the grit, the bench scoring, I would say the last area of concern was James Harden and his health, just the way he looked at the end of the year. And taking a look at videos, pictures, by all accounts this offseason, James Harden might be in the best shape of his life. We've seen the videos of him in those Rico Hine runs where he just looks good. I mean, like every NBA guy looks good in pickup basketball. I've seen this craze on Twitter, and I feel like it's been happening more and more every offseason where we see these videos of these guys in open gyms, and we're like, he's about to take a huge jump. It's like, no, these guys are just really, really good at basketball. So I'm not so much banking on the fact that James Harden is getting buckets in these runs, but just the way he looks physically. He's very clearly slimmed down. He looks like he has some of that explosiveness back, and I can't wait to see what he looks like this season. So we know what the concerns were. The concerns were toughness, grit, bench scoring, and the health of James Harden. And across the board, this team, this organization has addressed each and every one of those things. Bench scoring, well, you get that with Daryl Morey Jr., you get that with De'Anthony Melton, and truth be told, you get that with Montrezl Harrell. Montrezl Harrell, that signing has gotten dogged by fans. I'm going to address that a little bit more later in the video, but I mean, you can't ignore the fact that in the last 5 seasons, I saw this on Twitter, I can't take credit for looking this up myself, but in the past 5 seasons, there's only been 2 guys to score at least 5,000 points off the bench. Jordan Clarkson and Montrezl Harrell. Like, Montrezl Harrell, while he has his defensive shortcomings, he is a guy that can provide a scoring punch off the bench to go along with the fact that he helps in the toughness and grit category. So we got tougher with PJ Tucker and Montrezl Harrell. We added bench scoring with De'Anthony Melton, Daryl Morey Jr., and Montrezl Harrell. And we see James Harden, at the very least, he's going to come into the season in shape. So all four major areas of concern with this roster have been filled by the organization. Now let's talk about some of the concerns that fans and myself may have going into this regular season. Number one, do we have enough bench scoring? I'm of the mindset that bench scoring is kind of an overrated concept. Like, you need depth, and you would like to have bench scoring, particularly in the regular season, so guys can get more rest. You know, you're going to have a guy like Joel Embiid who is going to have DNPs. You're going to have a guy like James Harden who's going to have DNPs. So during the regular season, you want to have that depth just so guys don't have to play 82 games, or at least don't have to play as many minutes throughout the course of the season. But come playoff time, all you hear every season is how rotations shorten in the postseason. You don't need to be super deep in the postseason. You just got to have 8 guys that you can rely on, and I think the Sixers absolutely have that. I made a video just about a week ago where I said that I would love for the Sixers to go get Jordan Clarkson. I think the Sixers need to get Jordan Clarkson, but it's not because we need more depth, because I know we'd be giving away some of those pieces that we already have to get him. I just think he becomes one of those reliable 8, one of those super reliable 8, because we know what he's capable of when it comes to putting the ball in the hoop. But even without Jordan Clarkson, with the starting 5 that we're going to have of James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, and Joel Embiid, with DeAnthony Melton coming off the bench, with Niang coming off the bench, with Harrell coming off the bench, with House coming off the bench, with Thibault and Furkan and Shake, who I know people are kind of dogging some of those guys, but I'm still believers, especially in Thibault and Furkan. Like, I'm a really big believer in those 2 guys. I think we have more than enough scoring, and honestly, the scoreboard don't care where it comes from. The scoreboard doesn't care if it's bench scoring or starter scoring. It's all totaled up, and we score enough points to win games. I feel that way. I felt that way all last year. Even in the playoffs, we scored enough points to win games. I don't think that was the issue, so I do believe we have enough scoring coming from the bench. Another area of concern that our fan base seems to have is the signing of Montrezl Harrell, and if he's a good enough backup 5. I want to address that. A lot of the criticism with signing Montrezl Harrell is about his defense or lack thereof. But defense was not a concern with this team. I didn't hear anybody at the end of last season say we lost to the Miami Heat because we didn't play well enough defensively, or we didn't have enough good defensive players. Like, we didn't need to add defense. We needed to add toughness. Check. We needed to add grit. Check. We needed to add bench scoring. Check. Montrezl Harrell checks all the boxes of what we needed, and we didn't pay much to get him. Maybe he pans out, maybe he doesn't, but to get a guy for $2.5-3 million who provides the 3 things that we needed, I mean, how do you not do that? And I know there's people who would love to see Charles Bassey or Paul Reed get an opportunity. And listen, truthfully, I would too. But I also understand this team is in win now mode. And it seems like we all agree we're in win now mode. Well, you can't do both unless you're the Warriors. That's the only team I've ever seen be able to win now and build for the future. Like, you kind of have to choose. And Paul Reed and Charles Bassey might be really good down the line, but I don't think they're ready to help us now. Paul Reed just fouls way too much. He's a little bit bigger than Harrell. Like, Harrell's an undersized backup 5. Sure, he's only 6'7", but Reed is also undersized at 6'9". And, I mean, he just fouls too much, man. It seems like he's picking up 3 fouls every time he comes in the game, which he's just not reliable. And if you're in win-now mode, you can't afford to be trying to let a guy develop, right? You don't want to be wasting these prime years of Joel Embiid, and you don't want to waste what's left of James Harden. I'm not saying Paul Reed isn't going to end up being better than Harrell. I'm not even saying that he if you gave him a full year, by the end of the year, he might not be better. But it's like, you don't want to risk it. Like, we have to have the most reliable guys possible playing, because our window is closing. The opportunity we have to win a championship, it's not as big as it was a year or 2 ago. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller with the aging James Harden, Joel Embiid, who, thank God he stayed healthy last year, but that's not a given that every year he's going to remain healthy, and Tyrese Maxey kind of excelling at the moment. Like, the time is now, and you have to have the most reliable guys. Bassey and Reed are not reliable. Montrezl Harrell, at the very least, you know what you're getting from him, and you can rely on that. So I don't see a problem with the Harrell signing. All of that brings us to, where do I see this team going? Where do I see this team ending up at the end of the year? Well, I'm actually going to take it 2 different directions. One, I want to talk about the floor, and then I want to talk about the ceiling with this team. I believe the floor of this team is the 6th seed. Now, I'm not saying we're going to finish as the 6th seed, but I think that's kind of the floor. I think if things really don't go our way, we're going to end up in that 6th seed area. And that's because I think there are 5 other teams who could potentially finish above us. The Boston Celtics, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Miami Heat, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Toronto Raptors. I don't think all of those teams are better than us. But let's say Embiid doesn't stay healthy. Let's say James Harden doesn't stay healthy. Let's say the signing of PJ Tucker doesn't work out or DeAnthony Melton doesn't work out. Like if guys get hurt and the fits just aren't right, you could see a potential outcome where we finish as the 5 or 6 seed. I mean, that's just possible if things don't go our way. Where do I think the ceiling of this team is? I think the ceiling of this team is an NBA championship. I think if guys stay healthy, if James Harden really is in as great of a shape he looks and he stays healthy, and if Tyrese Maxey takes another leap this year, if Joel Embiid delivers another MVP type season and doesn't get hurt in the postseason, PJ Tucker is the exact thing we needed to bring that toughness and that grit. Tobias Harris is a professional bucket getter. Like if he has a good year and is knocking down shots, and then if all these new additions like Melton and House and Montrezl Harrell provide that punch off the bench that we think they can, this team has the potential to win an NBA championship. That's the floor. That's the ceiling. Where do I see this team ending up? I see this team finishing in the conference finals. Let me explain why. When I'm looking at the roster and the wild potential of this roster, like I said, the ceiling is a championship. I think that this team has what it takes to make it to the conference finals. The reason why I'm not ready to go above and beyond and say we're going to make the finals or win the championship is for 2 reasons. Number one, I have to see it. I have to see what it looks like when we all come together, and not in the first week or the first month of the season. I want to see what we look like come January, February, where we've had time to practice, get games under our belt, and hopefully we're healthy at the time. And when I want to see what it really looks like on the floor before I can declare that this team is going to win a championship or going to make it to the NBA Finals. And number 2, I just think Giannis is a bad man. And I think if the Milwaukee Bucks are healthy, they're still my pick to win the Eastern Conference. They were my pick to win it all last year before Chris Middleton got hurt. Or actually, Chris Middleton was hurt when I said that, but I thought he was going to come back. I think if they had Middleton last year, they would have won the championship. I think that Giannis almost single-handedly beat the Boston Celtics in a Herculean effort. I just think if the Milwaukee Bucks are completely healthy, I don't know how we guard Giannis. Like, they could throw Brook Lopez and some bodies at Embiid to maybe give him a hard time and make him earn his 30 and 10 or 30 and 15, whatever he's going to get. I don't know anyone we can put on Giannis that's going to make him work. Like, I think Giannis will get 40 every game in the playoffs against us. But again, we'll see how it looks. Maybe PJ Tucker can give him a hard time, and then you could throw Tobias Harris at him and all this stuff. But between me needing to see how this team looks when it's actually on the floor and not just on paper, combined with me believing that the Milwaukee Bucks are still the team to beat in the East when they're fully healthy, I'm not ready to say that this is going to be an NBA champion or that this team is going to make it to the finals. I see this team making it to the conference finals, and then running into Giannis, and then we'll see what happens, man. You never know when you get to that point. But hey, that is the 2022-2023 state of the Sixers. I think that this team has a very, very good roster. I think they filled every hole that they had at the end of last season. It doesn't mean every move is going to pan out perfectly, but I think they did everything they possibly could to shore up those gaps and field a team that us as fans can look at and say, yo, we have a good chance of winning the championship. And as a fan, that's really all you can ask for. If you liked the video, don't forget to like the video. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Sixers Breakroom. And if you want to become a member, that link is in the description below. I can't wait for this season. We got so much content planned for you. It's going to be a fun one. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.